Have you ever found yourself sitting in your favorite chair, coffee in hand, the house completely still, and suddenly felt the kind of silence that doesn't soothe, it sinks? No one to call just to share that strange dream you had. No one checking in, not even a quick, "Hey, how are you really doing?" And the truth hits you. There's no one left. Not really. Not in the way there used to be. That silence isn't peaceful, it's heavy. And the older we get, the heavier it can feel. If you've ever looked around your home and wondered, how did I end up here alone? If you've felt invisible or like the world somehow moved on without you, I want you to hear this. You are not the only one. And more importantly, you are not broken. Let's talk about something we don't often say out loud. Growing older can bring with it a kind of quiet grief, not just for the people we've lost, but for the friendships that slowly faded without warning. Take Roger, for example. He's 74. After retiring from decades as a mail carrier, he was excited. No more alarm clocks, long afternoons reading, walking the dog. It sounded like peace, but after a few months, that peaceful silence started to feel like something else, a kind of emptiness. His wife had passed a few years earlier. His kids live in other states, busy with their own lives, and the friends he used to meet for lunch, one moved away, one passed, the rest just drifted over time. One day, Roger told me something that stuck with me ever since. He said, "It's strange. I spent my whole life surrounded by people, and now I hear more from telemarketers than from friends." And the sad thing is, his story isn't rare. See, we're told to expect the physical shifts of aging, slower steps, new medications, more doctor visits, but almost no one talks about the emotional shift, that moment when the people we relied on, the ones who knew our stories, our routines, start to vanish. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's subtle. The neighbor you wave to every morning moves away. Your weekly lunch group shrinks, calls go unanswered, invitations stop coming, and eventually you go from being part of a busy, connected world to hearing about it secondhand. Slowly the circle closes in, and in that shrinking space, something else moves in: loneliness. Not the dramatic kind, the quiet kind, the kind that creeps in late at night when you wake up and realize there's no one you can call. The kind that whispers, not shouts. The kind that makes you wonder if anyone would notice if you stopped reaching out. For many older adults, this isn't just a sad thought, it's a real ache. Because no one prepared us for the loss of friendships with people who are still alive, but no longer close. It's a confusing kind of grief. Maybe you relate to Roger. Maybe you imagined retirement would feel restful, but instead it feels empty. Maybe your home is filled with memories, but not with laughter. Maybe people keep saying how lucky you are to be healthy, and you smile and nod while quietly carrying a heaviness no one sees. That right there, that's the quiet tragedy of this stage of life. It's not just missing the events, the outings, the plans. It's missing the people, the ones who saw you, really saw you. The ones who remember what you looked like with darker hair. The ones who still laugh at that inside joke from 1986. But here's the thing, our culture rarely acknowledges this kind of loss, especially not for older people, especially not for those of us who did everything right. We raised kids, we worked hard, we stayed active, we volunteered, and now we're told we should be content, that an occasional family visit, a hobby or two, and a few holiday cards should be enough. But deep down we know it's not, because hobbies don't replace connection, greeting cards don't replace conversation, and staying busy isn't the same thing as being seen. Worse still is the myth we hear again and again, that after a certain age people don't need deep friendships anymore, as if the need for emotional connection just expires, like a carton of milk once you turn 65. But science disagrees, strongly. Study after study shows that meaningful social ties in later life don't just make us feel good, they keep us alive longer. They reduce stress, lower blood pressure, boost memory, and even lower the risk of dementia. And it makes sense, right? Because friendships, real friendships, remind us that we matter, that we're not just still here, we're seen, that we have value, that we are needed. And when we lose that sense of being needed, even the simplest things, making lunch, going for a walk, can start to feel pointless. Roger once said, "Sometimes I wonder, if I just disappeared, how long would it take before anyone noticed?" And that question, it hit me hard, because no one, at any age, should ever feel that way. But the truth is, when emotional connection fades, a piece of us fades with it, and sadly, many older adults begin to think the loneliness is their fault. Maybe they didn't try hard enough to stay in touch. Maybe they've just become boring. Maybe it's just part of getting older. Let me be clear, it's not your fault. This isn't about personal failure. It's a cultural blind spot. We've built a society that tells older people to be grateful, stay occupied, and keep their complaints to themselves. But keeping busy isn't the same thing as being connected. That's why this conversation matters, because silence helps no one. It's okay to say out loud, "I miss having someone to talk to." That doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. And here's the part I want you to remember. It's not too late. It never is. You can reconnect. You can rebuild. You can rediscover what it feels like to be truly seen. In the next part, we're going to dig into something even more important. How this kind of emotional loneliness doesn't just weigh on the heart, but actually impacts the body and the brain. Because what feels like sadness can quietly become a real health risk. But don't worry, there's a way forward, and you're not walking it alone. We often think of loneliness as something sad but harmless, a phase, a bit of melancholy that just comes with getting older. But what if I told you that loneliness, especially as we age, isn't just emotional, it's physical, it's biological, and in many cases it's dangerous? Let's go back to Roger. About 6 months into retirement, things started shifting, not just in his heart, but in his energy. He began sleeping later. He dragged through the day. Conversations became foggy. He forgot names, lost his train of thought. He skipped meals, not because he didn't have food, but because cooking for one felt pointless. His doctor said everything looked fine, heart healthy, blood pressure normal, but emotionally, Roger was unraveling. Slowly, quietly, and what was happening to him wasn't rare. In fact, it's something researchers have been studying more and more in recent years. You see, the human brain is wired for connection. We are social by design, even the introverts among us. Our nervous systems are built to thrive in relationship, and when those connections vanish, the effects ripple far beyond our mood. The National Institute on Aging and other major research bodies have found that prolonged loneliness raises inflammation in the body, it weakens the immune system, it dulls cognitive function, and over time, it significantly increases the risk for chronic conditions like heart disease, depression, and even dementia. Let that sink in for a moment. Feeling isolated can be just as harmful to your health as smoking or being significantly overweight. But unlike other health risks, loneliness doesn't show up on a chart or a scan. It shows up in small, quiet cracks. You start forgetting where you left your keys. You cancel plans because you're too tired. But it's really just the weight of being alone. You let the TV run all day, not because you're watching it, but because you need the sound to fill the silence. And you might not even notice it at first. It starts subtly, missing one social gathering, then two, then all of them. You start telling yourself it's easier to stay in, less effort, less awkwardness, less disappointment. Before long, the days blur together, and so does your sense of self. But let me say this clearly. This isn't happening because you're getting older. It's happening because you have an unmet emotional need, a real human need for connection, and that need doesn't go away with age. It doesn't fade because you hit retirement or because your kids have their own lives now. If anything, it grows stronger. Now, let's be clear, connection doesn't mean you need 10 new best friends or a full social calendar. It might be one person, one real conversation, one check-in call that goes beyond "I'm fine." Because emotional connection isn't about quantity, it's about quality. It's not about performing for others or proving your worth. It's about being known, being accepted, as you are. But here's where we run into a big problem. We live in a culture that trains us to undervalue emotional needs, especially in older adults. People say things like "keep busy" or "join a club," but they don't ask the deeper questions, like "who do you talk to when you're really sad?" or "who reminds you that you matter?" We're told to move, to stay active, to fill the hours, and while those things can be helpful, they don't fill the emotional void, because you can walk 5 miles a day, keep your house spotless, volunteer every Tuesday, and still feel completely alone. Because loneliness isn't cured by movement alone, it's healed by connection. the kind that shows up in ordinary moments, a shared laugh, a genuine "how are you?", a memory revisited with someone who still remembers the details. That's what we're missing, and that's what so many people quietly crave but feel too embarrassed to admit. But here's the hope, and it's real. Once you realize that this ache inside isn't your fault, something powerful starts to shift. You stop blaming yourself. You stop carrying that invisible shame, the "I should have called more," or "maybe I'm just not interesting anymore." You begin to understand that loneliness isn't a flaw in you. It's not proof that you're unworthy. It's a signal, a message from your heart that your emotional world needs attention. The same way a sore back tells you to rest, loneliness tells you to reconnect. And once you see it that way, once you accept that connection is not just nice to have but necessary, you begin to take your power back. You begin to heal, and healing doesn't mean forcing yourself to be someone you're not. It doesn't mean joining every social club in town or pretending you're suddenly outgoing. It starts with small, brave steps, asking yourself, what can I do today that would help me feel a little more alive? It might be saying yes to one invitation, reaching out to one old friend, smiling at the person next to you in line at the store. You might think these are tiny acts, that they don't matter, but they do. They absolutely do, because those moments are how connection begins, one thread at a time. Let me share another story, one you'll probably relate to. Margaret, she's 69. She was a school librarian for over 30 years, loved by students, respected by peers, always surrounded by conversation and books and young energy. When she retired, she was excited. She pictured herself writing, gardening, maybe even traveling a bit. But 3 months in, she sat me down and said, "I thought I wanted peace and quiet. What I got was just quiet." Her husband was still around, but their conversations had shrunk over time. Her daughter had moved across the country, and the weekend brunch friends, they were still around, but everyone had their own schedules, their own lives. At first, she didn't even notice the loneliness. It crept in, slowly, a day without talking to anyone, then 2, then a week. She'd scroll through her phone and see names she hadn't called in years, and wonder, would they even want to hear from me now? And then came the thought that so many people have, but rarely say out loud, maybe it's just too late. But hear me on this, it's not. It is absolutely not too late to find connection again. It just doesn't happen the same way it used to. When we were younger, friendship came naturally. We met people through school, work, kids' activities. Proximity created connection. But now we have to choose it. We have to create space for it. And yes, it takes courage. In the next part, we're going to talk about how to do that, how to rebuild friendships after 60, not just where to find them, but how to feel worthy of them again, and how the smallest choices made with intention can open doors to a life that feels full again, because you haven't missed your chance. Your life isn't winding down, it's evolving, and it still holds so much promise. So now we've arrived at a big question, the one that often lingers in the back of your mind. If I'm this age, is it even possible to start over? Maybe you've asked yourself, what's the point? Isn't it too late to make new friends? Let me tell you right now, that voice in your head is not your truth. That's not wisdom. It's weariness. It's not reality. It's a cultural myth. And it's time we dismantle it. One of the most harmful lies about aging is that we lose our capacity or even our desire for new relationships. But the truth is, many older adults, especially in their 60s, 70s and 80s, feel more emotionally open than ever, more grounded, more aware of what matters and what doesn't. Why? Because they've lived, they've loved, they've lost, and in the process they've discovered that life isn't about how many people surround you, it's about who really sees you. You're not looking for popularity. You're not chasing small talk or shallow acquaintances. What you crave and what you deserve is depth, trust, authenticity. The kind of connection that says, I'm here for who you really are. Take Gloria. She's 72, divorced for over a decade, and for a long time she felt like friendship was something that had passed her by. Everyone she knew seemed busy. Grandkids, routines, retirement hobbies. Life went on without her. Then one day she did something bold. She signed up for a painting class at the community center. Not because she was good at it. In her own words, she said, I hadn't painted since I was 9. But she was curious and tired of the silence. She almost backed out the morning of the first class. She felt awkward, out of place, but she went, and over time, something unexpected happened. She started chatting with two other women, both around her age. They painted side by side. Then they had coffee, then lunch. Now, every Wednesday, the three of them meet, sometimes to paint, but mostly to be together, to laugh, to listen, to hold space for each other. Gloria told me, it didn't fix everything, but it gave me something to look forward to. That's the magic of showing up, even when you're scared. But maybe you've tried, maybe you've put yourself out there, and it didn't work. Maybe the coffee date never led to more, or the walking group didn't feel right. That's okay, you're not a failure, and your story isn't over, because here's another truth we don't talk about enough. You can find joy even if your circle stays small. You can feel fulfilled even if you spend more time alone than with others, because happiness in this chapter of life doesn't look one specific way. Some people bloom in friendships, others bloom in solitude. There are men and women right now in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, living beautiful, peaceful lives without a wide circle of friends. Some are introverted by nature. Others tried for connection and didn't find it easily, but instead of giving up, they turned inward and found something sacred. They garden, they write, they read poetry, they walk slowly through their neighborhoods and watch the seasons change. They listen to old records and let the music stir memories. They sit quietly with a cup of tea and allow their breath to catch up with their thoughts, and in those quiet moments, they aren't lonely, they're alive. That's the difference between isolation and solitude. Isolation is a cage, solitude is a sanctuary. Isolation makes you feel forgotten. Solitude lets you remember who you are, because being at peace with yourself, being genuinely comfortable in your own company, is one of the most powerful things you can ever learn. It's not easy. It takes practice, but it's possible, and it's worth it. You begin to choose presence over pressure, joy over judgment, peace over performance. You start doing things not because someone's watching, but because they bring you back to life. Maybe it's writing in a journal every morning, or sipping coffee while watching the birds out the window. Maybe it's picking up a long-forgotten hobby, or simply speaking words of kindness to yourself at the end of a long day. These aren't small acts. They are sacred. And even in solitude, something beautiful still happens. You start to notice tiny connections, ones that don't require deep history or constant interaction, but still make you feel part of something bigger. A smile from a stranger at the market, a short conversation with a neighbor about the weather, a handwritten letter sent to someone from your past, even if they never write back. These moments are like little lights. They remind you you still belong. You are still part of the human story, and you are not invisible. So if you're sitting there thinking, but what if I missed my chance, let me gently offer a new thought. You're living in your chance. Right now, this moment, this breath, this decision to feel something again, that is your chance. Ask yourself, what would help me feel more connected today? Not someday. Today. Is it sending a message to an old friend? Taking a walk with intention? Writing down how you feel, not for anyone else, but for you? Joining that book club you've been thinking about? Or is it something quieter, something deeper, like saying out loud, I'm ready. I don't know what's next, but I'm ready to feel alive again. That's your compass. Follow it. Don't let the world convince you that aging means fading. It doesn't. Aging means surviving, transforming, becoming, and now you get to decide what joy looks like for you. Maybe it's rebuilding friendships. Maybe it's learning how to be your own best friend. Maybe it's both. Whatever it is, know this. Your happiness has no expiration date, and neither do you. If this video touched your heart, I invite you to leave a comment. Share something that brings you joy these days. Tell us what part of your life you're reclaiming, because your voice, yes, yours, might be the one that helps someone else feel seen. You're not invisible, you're invaluable, and your next chapter, it's still unwritten. Let's write it together.